Hello everyone. This is the 15th part of the story Game of Thrones, the Prideful one. Chapter 71. 1 month later. The money I needed was finally here, 1,200,000 gold dragons. With it, I would buy the Unsullied and destroy Astapor. During this month, I had increased my animal friends with different animals. I had acquired 200 owls, 3,000 rats, 2,000 mice, and around 200 new snakes. It was in the end quite a productive month. Now it was time to move forward and show the masters the power of irony. Miss Andii, today will be the fall of Astapor. I smiled at the little girl, who looked at me for a second with confusion flowering inside of her. During this month she had tried to figure out what type of master I was, expecting physical, or perhaps sexual abuse, but I had proven her multiple times that I was not like the bastard she served in Astapor. A part of her already knew this, but she was still reluctant to believe such thing existed and was afraid to let her guard down, but we were getting there. This one will be your side, Miss Andii smiled almost imperceptibly. Can I burn them now? Neltharion inquired as he got out of the bed. I looked at Neltharion, who had grown a lot during this month, going from dog size to bear size, and smiled. Yes you can. Neltharion looked at me with a wide smile as he hissed, "You won't regret it, Dad. I will burn them all, I'll make you proud." I chuckled at his enthusiasm. Yes you will. The Plaza of Pride was just like everything in Astapor, in a pitiful state that made you wonder how the fuck they got to that point, but I wasn't here for the sights anyways. I was here for the Unsullied. With them I would destroy the city and rebuild it from the ashes. My plan was simple: to use their own product to destroy them, but it seemed the master's stupidity was beyond what even I had expected, because not only they were selling me every Unsullied soldier available in their rooster, with a few minor exceptions, but they had also allowed my army to enter the city this time. So instead of the original 14,000 soldiers I expected to have during this raid, because I expected them to have some brains, or at least a sense of self-preservation, I would have around 29,000 soldiers and a dragon, which would make this siege, this massacre, incredibly easy. Do you have the money? The master inquired in Bastard Valyrian with a greedy smile. I do, I answered. Miss Andii was by my side, but I had instructed her to be silent. I wanted to be the one dealing with the masters for today. Oh, the little bitch taught you some Valyrian? The master laughed with some concern. No, but it's my wife's mother language, I chuckled, letting him know that I knew before buying Miss Andii how to speak Valyrian. So how about we do this? The master eyed me for a second before nodding. Let's. With a smile, I ordered my men to start bringing the treasure chests with the gold coins I had promised them. Each chest had around 100,000 gold dragons, so in total I had brought 12 treasure chests. The master had his slaves count the money as he offered me during this time some tea or women to fuck while we waited. I obviously rejected his offers, for anything coming from him disgusted me. After a few hours, the count was finally done. Well, this was certainly a pleasure, the master said with a disgusting smile, giving me a whip, also known as harpy fingers, as the Unsullied started to march into the plaza. The harpy's fingers is the name of the whip used to scourge slaves in Astapor. Taking a deep breath, I looked at the whip. The handle was made of something black that was elaborately carved. It also had 9 leather lashes trail from it, each tipped by a gilded claw. The pommel had a woman's head with pointed ivory teeth. This whip was given to new masters of the Unsullied as a mark of payment. Will they obey any command? I inquired with a smile. The master laughed. My beautiful creatures will obey any command you give them. Unsullied. Jump once. I commanded, and without hesitation they did as they were told. Kneel. Once again they followed my order without hesitation. I told you, blindly loyal, the master said with pride. And that will be your outdoing, blind loyalty, good to know. Turning to my Unsullied, looking at them with a smile, I said, Unsullied. Slay the masters. Slay every soldier. Slay every man who holds a whip but harm no children. And strike off the chains of every soldier. Once again without hesitation the Unsullied did as they were told, and started to slay the masters in the plaza. The master looked at me with panic as he shouted to the Unsullied while pointing at me, I am your master. Kill him. Kill him. I smiled, holding the whip close to his face. Not anymore. With that said and done, I decided to make things even more poetic by whipping the master to his grave, as my newly acquired unsullied battalion alongside my Commissar started to take over the city. Time to burn! Neltharion hissed, flying above the city. Good heavens, I had instructed him to only burn the masters. Cerberus Tanselmi point of view. Joffrey had dismissed me from the Kingsguard, saying I was too old to be serving as a knight, but that wasn't the real reason behind my discharge. In an unprecedented and unexpected move from Lord Varys, I had been discharged under the grounds that I did not keep King Robert safe, and that age was starting to hit me. But that was just the tip of this political iceberg. I was old, not senile. I knew the Lannisters' motivations were to allow the brat to give a white cloak to his dog, Sandor Clegane, and to allow Queen Cersei Lannister to place her brother Jaime as the new Lord Commander with a seat on the small council. I was angry at this. I had served against my beliefs for my entire life, and this is how I get paid for my services, but I was also happy. After all, I've burned away my years fighting for terrible kings. As man of honor, I had to keep my vows, even if I was serving a drunk or a lunatic. And just for once in my life, before it comes to an end, I want to know what it's like to serve with pride, to fight for someone I believe in. With that in mind, with the opportunity to serve someone I believed in, I was on my way to Essos. I will use what is left of my life to clean my sins with my blade, I muttered, holding the hilt of my blade tight. Tywin Lannister point of view. I leave for 1 week, 1 fucking week, and my children fuck everything once again. While it was true Cerberus Tanselmi was old, his name brought fear into the hearts of our enemies. An asset we needed more than ever. But the idiot I had for a daughter had to meddle in matters that didn't concern her and hurt our side even more. If the old knight decided to serve Renly, Stannis, or the Mormont brat, it would hurt us to no end. I now had to do some damage control before things escalated. It's almost like my children want to lose this war, I muttered. Back to Ronard point of view. Taking Astapor was easy. After a few hours, I had complete and absolute control over the city. I was richer, because while the city looked shit, it was loaded with gold, literally. My army was still pulling gold out of the city, and by my estimate, I had not only recovered what I had paid for the Unsullied but had made that about over 10 times already. My army was officially in the 100,000s, counting the men I had on Westeros. Things were going great today for me. You really meant what you said, Missandei, I said in disbelief. I do, I nodded, ruffling her hair a bit. Take a good look around, for this is what will happen to every slaver in the known world. Missandei stood silent for a second, seeing the dead masters on the streets, before she turned her gaze to me with a smile. You said that it was this one choice, if this one wanted to serve you or not. Well, this one wants to. This one wants to serve the Breaker of Chains, the Father of Dragons, the Call of the West. This one wants to serve you. Holy moly, I stole Daenerys' mojo, and I'll be glad to have you under my wings. Chapter 72. After taking full and absolute control over Astapor, with my first order of business being that slavery was illegal and that all slaves were free to choose their own path, I left the city, leaving a small army of 5,000 men to protect it as I rode with the rest of my army off to Myr, where I would meet with Daenerys and my babies. Coming to Astapor had opened my eyes to many interesting problems in my plan. Logistically speaking, every time I conquered a city, I had to leave behind some type of army to defend it, which in the end would leave me short of men. The only way to avoid that was to completely destroy any opposition. And considering that so far I had personally conquered 3 cities, for if I counted Tyrosh that was conquered by one of my generals during my time in Astapor, things were looking bad for me in the future. In each city I had been leaving around 5,000 soldiers to defend my new lands from sieges and raids from nearby cities that decided it was their time to shine, leaving my usable army in the 75,000s, at the moment, instead of the almost 100,000 I had in total. While 75,000 men were indeed a big army, at the pace I was dwindling my own numbers for logistical reasons, I would end up with almost none. Myr 5,000 men. Lys 5,000 men. Tyrosh 5,000 men. Astapor 5,000 men. In total I had 20,000 men out of my hands, but now that I had noticed this problem, those numbers could and would be improved. For example, the islands didn't need that many men to protect them, the Krakens were all the defenses they needed, so I could lower the numbers on those to 1,000 men each island and it would be more than enough. Now, the earthbound cities needed the soldiers I had on them, mostly to avoid putting me in a situation where I had to conquer a city twice, so as now the only way to shorten the amount of men I had off my hands was by taking some from the islands. "Is there anything this one can do for you?" Miss Andy, I offered. "Not for now," I chuckled. "By the way, you can refer to yourself with instead of this one." This? I was taught I wasn't a person but an object. It's hard, Miss Andy, I smiled at me, as she tried to speak normally, struggling a lot to do it. "Then that is my mission for you," I smiled, ruffling her hair. "From now on, I want you to focus on erasing that idea off your head." I understand. I will do my best, Miss Andy, I smiled. I turned to her with a smirk on my face. "I don't want you to try. Trying means failure is possible. I want you to do it, to succeed." Miss Andy, I looked at me for a brief moment, still probably questioning why was I doing all of this, before she nodded. "I will do it." "Atta girl," I chuckled. Daenerys' point of view 1 month prior. The public execution for Viserys started. My brother begged me to forgive him. But I had lost all the empathy I had for him a long time ago, and he killed the Ashes when he threatened my children. By fire we forged our path, and by fire he would die. "Dany, please. I beg you. Don't do this. I'm your brother. Your king. Please, I'm sorry." Viserys cried, snot falling down his nose. "You are no brother of mine, you are no king of mine, you are nothing," I said with a cold tone, and in cue both Crow and Regal flew out of their rooms, scaring Viserys. "Dany, please!" Viserys cried out once again, for everyone to see. "Dracarys." Soon after those words left my mouth, both Crow and Regal set my brother to flames. His screams of pain lasted about 3 seconds, before he was turned to ashes, showing the world he was no dragon, for flames can't hurt a dragon. "Be this a reminder, that I will do anything to protect my family," I said as I walked out of the execution area with Crow and Regal, leaving behind turmoil of emotions in the crowd. Some cheered for me, mostly the Ironborn, some feared me, and others respected me. "People will forever remember this," Daisy said with a concerned tone. "Good, let it be a reminder that there isn't someone I wouldn't kill to protect my husband and children." Daenerys' point of view now. Ronard has conquered Astapor, and along the way had increased our numbers with 14,000 unsullied warriors. In his absence, Tyrosh had fallen under the might of our navy, and our sweet little bundles of joy had grown so much. Geralt was so big now, and was crawling like a little monkey everywhere, never getting tired, always looking to play, unlike Alyssa, who was her twin total opposite, calm and well-behaved, sleeping almost all the time. But even with her calm attitude, I would find Geralt corrupting his sister to do crazy baby stuff, like I would find Alyssa forcing Geralt to take a nap. Every day I would get a new surprise, a new reason to smile with them, but also a reason to be sad. I was sad Ronard was missing all of this. I knew and understood why, but it was still sad. "Don't be sad, my queen," Daisy said, reading my face like a book. "The king is coming in a month to Myr. You'll see him there, and so will the little cubs. I just wish we could be together at all times," I smiled. "Once this war ends, I'm sure that wish will come true," Daisy smiled. Illyrio Mopetus' point of view. Myr had fallen, and so did Astapor, and I was sure by this point that monster knew I had a hand in his assassination attempt. If I didn't do something, I would die. He had an army few could hope to match, 3 dragons that one day would grow to be beasts of unparalleled power, and the money to fund all that. But I had something he didn't. Experience, decades of experience. I knew I wasn't enough to kill him, but with the help of Bravos, he was as good as dead. "This plan you have is too expensive. If it fails, we can't do it again," the representative of the Iron Bank commented, and he was right. My plan to kill Ronard and his army was expensive, and it would put me on a crippling debt with the Iron Bank, but as long as Ronard existed, the young Griff would never get the crown. "Don't worry, I only need 1 shot, and all that brat built will fall like a house of cards," I smiled. Peter Baelish point of view. Things weren't going quite as planned. A small player became the most prominent player overnight. I had lost my position as the master of coin. The despicable Ned Stark had survived, closing any possible relationships for me with the Starks. After all, I did sell him out. But with time I would turn this to my favor. If the bear ended up winning, I was sure with the right preparation I could manipulate the young bear to my favor. I just had to find what made the young bear tick. "Lord Baelish," Varys said, entering my establishment. Varys, to what do I owe this pleasure? I inquired sarcastically. Save the lies for the court, now how about we talk about John Ares? Varys smiled, taking a seat. Varys knew how the old disgusting man had died, but he also knew who had requested such a thing. He couldn't use that against me, so what was the little spider trying to do? By all means, let's, I smiled. Marjorie Tyrell point of view. I was to marry in a few days. In a few days I would be queen. The only bad part was that my king didn't find women appealing at all, but that hardly mattered. I didn't care where or in whom he put his manhood inside, as long as his seed was delivered to me. If I gave him an heir, my position as the queen would be forever sealed. After that I couldn't care less if he slept with Loras for the rest of his life. Soon I'll be a queen, I smiled, begging the gods to help me get with the child fast. Chapter 73. After a month of traveling, I was finally in Myr, where Daenerys was waiting for me with open arms with our babies. I was surprised by how big the twins were. It is truly remarkable how babies grow during the first months of their life. You bought all the Unsullied? Daenerys asked, after my dose of kisses and baby hugs. Yes, but they are free men now, I nodded, because like she did in the show I too had given them their freedom, but they had decided to follow me, with Grey Worm as general. We keep getting stronger, Daenerys smiled. Yes we do, I said with a baby voice while holding the twins, making the twins laugh. PFF, Daenerys giggled. Oh by the way, there is someone I think will be of great help to you, I said, remembering I had yet to present her to Missandei. Daenerys and her were best friends on the show, so perhaps they could do the same here. Who? Daenerys inquired with curiosity sparkling in her eyes. Missandei, she was a slave translator, but I feel you two will get along, I said. A translator, well? I do like learning new languages, Daenerys hummed. Well, I don't see why not. Great, I smiled. What is your next step after this? Daenerys inquired. I had taken 4 cities, 3 of the free ones. The same, I said, after all, there wasn't much of a change. I want to help you more, Daenerys sighed, kneeling before me, kissing my hand in a lovely way. Let me, please. I had her for a second, deep in thought. She could really help, but I didn't want to risk her or my babies getting hurt, so I had to find something that wasn't as lethal. And then it dawned on me, I've been dealing with the conquests and the aftermatch of those by myself, but she could deal with the aftermatches for me. I do have something you could do, that would help me a big deal, I nodded. I need to deal with the aftermatches when I conquer a city. I'll be the one taking them down, and you'll be the one to assimilate them. Daenerys smiled, that way you don't have to stay in a city for too long, right? Exactly, I nodded. I suppose I can do only that for now, Daenerys said, eyeing the dragons. Ser Barristan Selmy point of view. The waters to Essos were tough and unforgiving, killing many men on my way to this continent, but I was finally here. I had to find the young bear. A man fighting against slavery and raiding was a man worth giving my last few years of service. I was old. I knew one day I would fail my swing. I would fail to block or to dodge. I wanted to do something good with my life while I still could. Rumors said he was in Myr at the moment, and would leave soon. In a month or less I would be his blade. Melisandre point of view. I was pregnant, with the tool to destroy Renly Baratheon. Using his older brother Essence I would birth the light minion to kill Renly. Then I would proceed to lead Stannis wrong so that he and the lions destroyed each other to the point of exhausting their own resources and men, so that when my beautiful prince finally crosses the continued and comes all he has to do is sit, and rule the ashes these false kings left behind. But I had to be careful. Stannis believed in me, but was an impulsive man. Should he feels I was leading him wrong he will kill me, and I'm quite not ready to die just yet. I've been waiting 400 years for this, to serve my prince in anything he might desire, an assassin, a lover, or a friend. I would be his in body and mind. Just wait my prince, the light will unite us. I'll be anything you need. Caw. This bitch is crazy. For him, yes I am. I had the raven on my window. The fire had told me his animals were more than the eye could see, and the fire had blessed me to understand them, and I was overjoyed my beautiful, perfectly magnificent prince decided to keep an eye on me. Tell my prince, I will help him from here. Olenna Tyrell point of view. The young bear had conquered yet another city, acquiring on the way an army of unsullied soldiers, increasing his already terrifying army. Alongside Renly's banners we had a bit over 100,000 soldiers. People would tremble before our army, that's what I would say, if I didn't know better. We had nothing but flowers going to war, men with no experience, with no idea how to hold a sword, wearing fancy armors. A soldier is only as good as his knowledge of the battlefield, reason why we were losing this war so bad. The idiot of my son had the worst case of tunnel vision possible. Hiring and drafting any men he could to war was like giving blind monkeys knives and letting them loose in the battlefield, but at least the monkeys would win more. My son thought numbers won wars, which was the most idiotic thought any man could have. Maybe I drank too much with him on my belly. Experience wins wars, knowledge wins wars. Otherwise you might as well throw babies into the battlefield and expect them to win because they outnumber the enemy. We had nothing useful, but the young bear had savages that had learned to kill just to eat, soldiers that were trained since they were nothing but toddlers to be the pinnacle of discipline, northerners that had to adapt to harsh conditions to survive, and the best navy in Westeros. Compared to that, I had to be realistic, we had no chance. Illyrio Mopatis' point of view. The Alchemist Guild would give the tool to destroy the Bear of Essos, the so-called Call of the West. 2 tons of wildfire, to destroy him and his army. This of course would be expensive and truly hard to accomplish, but I knew where he would eventually be. At one point he would come to Pentos, and I would burn the city with him. You won't see it coming, monster, I laughed. Yes he will, you idiot, you are the one that won't see us the Raven Knights when we take you down. Caw! What an annoying bird, I muttered, wondering why all of a sudden there were so many ravens on Pentos. Euron Greyjoy point of view. Since, some, ravens had stolen my dragon horn, I had sailed back old Valyria with one thing in mind, well to avoid the fucking usurper, and get my horn. I was fearless not stupid, with 1,000 men I had no chance of winning, he would have my head on his wall in less than an hour. But no one knew these waters like me, so avoiding him and getting the horn would be like fucking a nice pussy or killing a man, easy. 3 more days, and we'll get to Valyria, boys. I shouted as I laughed, oh yeah, I forgot none of you can talk. Dario Nahari's point of view. A Conquered was among us, and frankly he was having a lot of success, quite the fearsome warrior the Call of the West is, or the young bear as some call him. With an army of 100,000 soldiers, and his apparent strategic genius, I doubted he would have much opposition during his mission, and while many hated him I didn't, because thanks to the threat he represented we got quite the juicy contract with Yunkai. But that only meant I would have to kill him, and to be honest, if the rumors of his prowess in battle are half true, I'm more fucked than a new whore in a brothel. Ha! I suppose things are getting interesting regardless, I laughed. Grey Worm point of view. Our owner. No. Our king was a powerful man, a warrior of unparalleled strength and discipline, that danced on the battlefield like no one else. He was strong, someone worth fearing. But he was also kind like no one else. He broke our chains, he killed our jailers, he gave us something we had lost, years ago. Hope? Hope for a better tomorrow, hope for a better life, and for that, he would have our undying loyalty, for the Unsullied would follow him to hell and back if needed. Chapter 74. Before leaving for my next conquest on the list, I was informed by my ravens of a few things. 1. Ser Barristan Selmy was coming this way to pledge himself to me. 2. Illyrio was baking quite the diabolical plan, with an idea that might just work if he plays his cards right. He had commissioned a literal ton of wildfire to destroy me and my army, with the help of bravos. 3. Melisandre knew I was the champion of her god and for some reason probably related to her that she now could talk with my animals, and promised me she would kill Renly. And 4. Ned Stark in the entire North had pledged themselves to me. These bits of new information changed everything for me because if I didn't act fast my army would be erased from existence by the volatile power that Dragon Vegan Fire the Alchemist Guild was making. I knew Illyrio was planning something, that much was obvious, but one thing was wanting to kill me, and another was to basically create the equivalent of a nuke on this time just for me. And not only was he planning on using one if not the most dangerous substances in the world, but he also went as far as to using his city as a bait for me, meaning he would burn millions just to see me wrong. I gotta hand it to him, I misjudged his character. He isn't a spineless little pig, he's a spineless little monster. I never thought he would go that far to get rid of me. Assassination attempts? Sure, political plots? Obviously. But mass murder of his own people to accomplish his goal? Never. He was darker, I thought, by a big margin. The worst part about this was that it could actually work. Not with me. I was now apparently immune to fire, though I am not entirely sure if that applies to vegan fire, and I'm not looking forward to test that out. But regardless of my immunity to the fire, his plan could work, not as intended, but it could still hurt me on the political run. 1 ton of wildfire was more than enough to vaporize my army, and even if he doesn't kill me, leaving me without an army would fuck my entire plan and possibly the world. So I couldn't just sit and let him wait for the key of my destruction to be delivered at his door. I had to attack fast and now. Perhaps this was the result of my approach being too passive, and while that approach was the right call at the beginning, it wasn't now. Now I needed to bare my fangs and claws out and show them what happens when you mess with the bears. Change of plans. We are going to Pentos, all of us. I would march with my 100,000 me to Pentos, taking the city. At the same time I would attack Bravos, killing apparently the 2 biggest pseudo-threats I had right now before they grew to be real threats with real means to destroy my work. Without those 2 in my side, I would be able to take Essos with little to no opposition. Ned Stark point of view. Meej had accepted our betrothal a few months ago, which meant our alliance was sealed by blood and honor. All I had to do now was wait for him to come so that we could march south and take the throne. Rumors said he had 100,000 soldiers, that alongside the 40,000 the North could provide should be more than enough to win. Father, Rob said, entering my solar. Yes? I inquired. We have a letter from Renly. He said should we join him he will forgive our sins, Rob said reading the letter. Renly had been quite the pain since he heard we didn't pledge to his brother, sending ravens with passive threats with the underline always being the same, join me or die. Send him the usual response, I sighed. Yes, father. Rob nodded leaving my solar. Doran Martell point of view. Ned Stark had joined Ronard's side. With his support and ours the young bear would surely win the throne, and we would have the revenge we have desired for so many years. Together we would crush the Lannisters for what they did and get the justice we deserved. I heard the North join the young bear. At first I didn't believe it, but the wolf moved his army back to the north. As he waits for him to come, Oberyn Diaz as he entered my room, are we still to hide, brother? Or are we ready to show that snakes of Dorne pay their debts? Oberyn for once was right to be impatient. We finally had a tangible path to justice. We will follow the wolf's path. Oberyn stood silent for a second, clearly not expecting my answer. After a few seconds he composed and smiled, gladly. I will call our banners, and let the North know we are their allies in this mission, I informed Oberyn, who looked at me confused. What about me? Oberyn inquired. You will go to Essos with an army, to help the young bear come back home, so that we can destroy the Lannisters, I smiled. Oberyn smiled at that, it will be my honor. Melisandre point of view. The time had come for me to birth the tool to help my prince, the tool to eliminate his enemies. Pain, incandescent pain invaded every corner of my body, taking hold of my being, but this was nothing, for I would suffer 1,000,000 times more just to ensure my prince wins, just to ensure he fulfills the prophecy. Ah! I cried in pain, as the shadow left my body, blood dripping everywhere, and the only ones present to witness this was Davos. How fortunate of him to witness how I vanquished the enemies of my prince. Kill Renly. I gave the shadow the order, the reason for its short existence, a task he would most undoubtedly carry out with no problems. The shadows crawled close to me, as if giving his mother one last look before dying, before phasing off the cave I gave birth in, going straight to Renly. My prince, that's one. I hope you see my love for you has no bounds, I smiled, knowing every minute of pain I was and had suffered so far was nothing compared to the lengths I would go to just for him. This can't be right, Davos muttered, this can't be light. Poor ignorant soul, all shadows are born from light, I smiled. Ronard Mormont point of view, 2 weeks later. As I rode with my army to Pentos, I found along the way the old knight who wanted to join me. After a brief discussion with him, I decided to let him join my ranks, for in reality he was a really good knight that wasn't entirely bad, he was just your typical soldier that followed bad kings. He wanted to be the captain of my Kingsguard, and considering I technically didn't have I agreed, but in reality I was thinking of creating something in the Fuerte more along the lines of a round table for my knights in council, where every man would have a voice, and help me rule. But first I had to deal with Pentos, and then Bravos. I had to strike fast and strong, as to not give them any opportunity to fight back. If Bravos fell, the rest of Essos would be a piece of cake. With this siege I didn't have much of a plan. Pentos didn't have an army, nor any mighty walls to take down. They were weak, reason why they had been buying the calls out of their city. Bravos was the real challenge here. With more money than anyone can possibly imagine and a fierce army, they would give my army a challenge. Let's set camp, people. Tomorrow we won't stop until Pentos is on their knees and their magister is dead. I shouted, rallying my men a bit. For the call of the West. For the breaker of chains. For the king of the 7 kingdoms. For the father of dragons and emperor of the new world. For the young bear. I smiled, as I heard them chant each and every single one of my titles, that somehow seemed to grow in numbers every day. Chapter 75. Arriving at Pentos created a turmoil of emotions for me. For one, I was extremely angry with Illyrio and wanted to kill him, making sure he suffered a lot, but conquering Pentos took approximately 2 hours and had little to no bloodshed whatsoever. Apparently the high nobles of Pentos were quite the rational bunch, with the majority of them kneeling to save their lives and positions. Which in turn made capturing Illyrio a really easy task. He tried to escape on one of his personal boats, probably seeing how his idiotic actions had backfired his and that his only option was trying to escape, but sadly he was mysteriously eaten by sea creature. I really hope my poor Kraken doesn't get an indigestion. With Illyrio dead, Pentos was officially mine, though it still felt kinda off to win so easy, but I won't complain, things like this rarely happen. What are our orders? Sir Baristan inquired. We take control of the city and its assets and then we move to Bravos in 2 of 3 weeks too. I informed my war council as I leave the room. What they didn't know was that the real reason I was waiting was because of Oberyn Martell and the army. He was bringing an army to support me, and push me to go with him to Westeros. Which was an idea that had already occurred to me, because after taking Bravos under my control, which was by far the biggest threat on this side of the sea for me, I would be able to leave this continent and focus on the Iron Throne. Leaving Daenerys behind. I would leave Daenerys with a small part of my army to protect her and the cities we had already taken, and with that I would move all my attention solely on Westeros, attacking the kingdom while it was weak and vulnerable. Taking a deep breath, I decided to go to the kitchen and prepare something good. It had been quite a while since I had eaten anything made by me, being a lord and stuff. And much to my horror, Westeros didn't have any pizzas or hamburgers, so I had to improvise to emulate those delicious godlike creations. As I walked to the kitchen, Daenerys approached me with the twins who were stretching their arms begging to be with their dear old dad. Smiling, my beautiful wife inquired, "Where are you going?" "To the kitchen. I want to make some burgers, and now that I'm a dad it feels just right," I answered with a smile. Daenerys looked at me for a second before she asked with curiosity, "What is a hamburger?" "One of the many items any dad needs to know how to make, is parenting one-on-one." I chuckled. If she wanted to know she would have to eat one. The burgers were a massive success. Maybe I'll rip McDonald's off. My family seemed to love them, including my old man who even helped me with the grill, and while I'm still angry with him, I couldn't call that hate anymore. After everything everyone had done to me during the last few years, he really doesn't seem so bad. Technically the assholes of this world made him look good by comparison, and if I had to be rational about it, he wasn't inherently a bad person, just the most stupid person I have ever met, and that's bad, but not batshit evil Cersei level. So, I decided to give him a chance, because why not? He already had enough punishment with not being able to hold any lands or ever restore his lord title. He had no power over me, and he seemed to be trying to atone really hard. "These burgers are amazing," Yora said, trying to make some small talk. "Sad attempt, but keep trying," I chuckled, leaving him behind. "These are really good," Daenerys complimented. "Maybe we can make a business out of it." And there it was, my influence on her showing off. I was thinking the same. "How about we call the business CORNDONALDS?" I chuckled. Daenerys giggled, which in turn made the babies laugh with her. "Sure, we can also sell some corn, I suppose." I kneeled to the baby's level and with a baby voice said, "And our mascot will be Ronald CORNDONALD." "I already exist, master." Out of nowhere a raven that kinda looked like the Joker flew to my shoulder. "Existence is pain, master. Caw, our lives are fleeting before us. Don't you understand, master?" With every cornless day, the dark and sweet kiss of death comes closer and closer, waiting for us, haunting our dreams, and there will be a night where we will dream no more, where we will gasp for air but our bodies will fail, and all we can do every night is pray today isn't our night. But even then we can't never forget that fateful day is just in the horizon, waiting for us, and we will have to walk through it, and that's the one absolute truth in our lives, no matter our standing. Holy fucking corn! That was dark. That raven is scaring me, Daenerys smiled awkwardly. Me too, I nodded, while thinking Jesus fucking Christ, was the real Ronald McDonald this dark? I need time to process this, Neltharion hissed. Antidepressants he needs, for too dark that was. Rhoda said after a second. After a day of nothing but having fun together, and that incident with Ronald Corndonald, I decided to sleep. In a few weeks I would be marching to Bravos, and then to Westeros. Things were not going quite as I planned, but things were working nonetheless, and you don't try to fix something that is working. Oberyn Martell point of view. I was 2 weeks away from Pentos, and I never been happier. Our justice, our vengeance, soon I would make those who hurt my sweet sister lay with blood. The Mountain, Tywin Lannister and Amory Lorch, they in particular would pay for what they did. I would make sure of that. The day of justice is coming. Are you seeing this, Elia? Your brother will finally avenge you. I smiled at the sky, for when the sun shone it was my sweet Elia smiling at me from above. Ned Stark POV. The Martells has joined us, saying they could support us with over 40,000 me, that along what Ronard and the North had was more than enough to crush the lions in the South. An army of 180,000 soldiers, no matter how good of a strategist that old lion is, he was massively outnumbered. And while I was happy Ronard had the Martells' support, I was surprised. They didn't ask for anything, no money, no betrothal, no nothing. Perhaps they were joining to make the Lannisters pay for what they did to Elia Martell. Regardless of their reason, this made Ronard's claim massively better than it was before. Ronard is up for a surprise, I chuckled. Arya Stark point of view. Ronard was coming, I could feel it. Father had joined his side and so did the Snakes of Dorne. There was just a matter of time before he became our king. Knowing this, I focused even harder on my training. I had to help him. He saw talent in me when no one else did. He was the first friend I had outside my family, and whether he likes it or not, he is part of our pack, and I will protect him when the time comes. Arya, stop playing like a boy with that blade. Mother yelled at me, angry. I won't. I will be the first female Kingsguard, leave me alone. I shouted back. I won't accept this. Mother growled. I will be a battle lady, like Ronard said. I stood my ground. That man is no king of ours. And no lady needs a blade. Mother said, trying to take my blade. And what do you want, Mother? Sansa entered the room with a feint, getting between Mother and I. All you are teaching us is how to open our legs, and frankly that curriculum lacks a lot. Or maybe it doesn't. I'm sure that opening our legs will work if we lose a battle and some men try to rape us. Sansa. I will not tolerate this. You are out of line. I will, Mother tried to say, but Sansa cut her. We have Father's permission. You are the one out of line, Sansa replied calmly, which in turn made Mother slap Sansa on the face as she stormed out of the room. Wow, that was awesome. I said, smiling at my sister. I suppose I am, Sansa giggled, rubbing her face, but do try to avoid her when training. I don't want to be slapped on a daily basis. Will do, I laughed. This marks the end of part 15 of the story Game of Thrones, The Prideful One. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.